The New York Yankees flat out need to trade for Bryan Reynolds. They've missed on bringing in older players in the past. They have the opportunity to bring in a 27-year-old who doesn't make a stupid amount of money, and they're not willing to do it. You've seen what's happened when they've continuously given playtime to Aaron Hicks. He's made countless mistakes in the outfield. We've seen what's happened when they've given opportunities to other younger players who aren't outfielders, like Oswaldo Cabrera, who's pretty much exactly what Bryan Reynolds is, just not as good. Oswaldo Cabrera is a switch hitter who they want to play outfield. Bryan Reynolds is a switch hitter who's actually an outfielder. To make this clear, Bryan Reynolds is not an elite defender, but that's because he's considered a center fielder. There's no way that I wouldn't believe that Bryan Reynolds would be a better left fielder than Aaron Hicks. I just flat out won't believe it. With Bader in center, Reynolds in left, and Judge in right, that's the best outfield in baseball, in my opinion, especially in the American League and especially against the teams you're competing against, like the Houston Astros. Reynolds' numbers are not tremendously, they don't stick out, but this is one of those guys that you put him in a Yankee lineup, you put him in a lineup where he has protection and doesn't have as much of a job, kind of like what happened when they got DJ LeMahieu, a guy that is just going to make a tremendous jump by being on a competent team because he's never been on it. All of his Pittsburgh teams have been absolutely terrible. The best team he's played for is Vandy in his college days. His stats from this season, he had 74 runs scored on 142 hits, 27 homers, and 62 RBIs. Those numbers aren't super impressive to me, but from a guy that switch hits, he's one of the best switch hitters in baseball, and he's not that inaffordable. He's a guy that you can get. You look at this play here in the playoffs, and you can't tell me that Bryan Reynolds does not make that catch. And part of the reason of the issue with this play is Oswaldo Cabrera at shortstop because he shouldn't be there. But the Yankees are going into a season where you want to start a rookie at shortstop, either Anthony Volpe or Oswaldo Peraza. Trade the other of the two to Pittsburgh for Bryan Reynolds. They don't know who the left fielder is going to be at this point for the Yankees. Trade him. Trade the other shortstop for Bryan Reynolds. This will give whatever shortstop you want confidence as his competition is gone, and maybe it backfires. But my idea is you trade Oswald Peraza to Pittsburgh. This tells Anthony Volpe he's your guy at shortstop. Pittsburgh gets to use Oswald Peraza as their second baseman next to O'Neal Cruz. You can also send in over Oswaldo Cabrera, who's a great utility man. You can send Everson Pereira, who's a minor league outfielder who could play on their spring training team and show him what he's got. You could give him Will Warren, who's a decent pitcher, and you give him Clark Schmidt, who's better than most of the pitchers on the Pirates right now, and he would be someone that'd either be in the rotation or out of the bullpen currently. The Yankees need to make this move because they constantly lose to Houston in the playoffs and then constantly don't make moves to try to put them ahead of Houston. You add in old players like Josh Donaldson and Hicks that don't pay off, when here's an opportunity to add a younger guy that you could have control of. He's only set to make slightly over $6 million this year. His contract's for $13,500,000 for the next 2 years, and you wouldn't have to. That's not much to pay for him compared to what you'd have to do with the Josh Donaldson. If you just get rid of Donaldson's contract, get rid of Hicks' contract, there's no lack of money for Bryan Reynolds, and the only argument you can make for the Yankees not to make this move is they don't want to give up the prospects. But I'm sick of hearing that because for so many years they've had these prospects and they've gotten nothing out of them, and they haven't even been productive players. We've wanted to trade Clint Frazier in the past, we ended up getting nothing for him. Wanted to trade Andujar in the past, get nothing for him. So now's the time where you've holding on to two prospects to play the same position. You have second baseman Gleyber Torres, or you want these two guys to be the middle infield, so put Gleyber Torres in the deal. They have the pieces where they can make a deal work, and they seem reluctant to do it, which is frustrating as a fan because they've made this mistake in the past. It's one of those things where you just got to pull the trigger. Reynolds offers you everything you need. He can play left. You need a left fielder. He's a switch hitter. That's something you don't have. He's not a pure power hitter, which is what you have a lot of. He's pretty much what we wanted Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to be on the offensive side. He's a guy that's going to put the ball in play, and he's going to hit much better than Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, but he's not a guy that you're going to have these tremendously high expectations for like Aaron Judge. But you can slot him as your two-hitter. Maybe your lineup goes Bader then Reynolds, or you want Reynolds down farther and have Judge there. But he's definitely a top-of-the-order guy. He's not elite speed, but he's going to probably be the second fastest guy, the second fastest hitter. I'm not going to really talk much about the rookies because I don't know what they're going to do as far as they're going to get on base, but he's the second fastest guy on the team besides Bader. So he's going to add versatility there. He's not really a stolen base guy, but if Judge is up, he's on first. He's going first or third on a single. That's the type of speed he has. You can see in his highlight reel, he's got some good base running. He's a smart base runner. But if you look at his baseball savant, his numbers aren't great, especially defensively. But that's because he's compared as a center fielder. You move him to left, those numbers all go up. His arm's a little bit concerning, but in left at Yankee Stadium, you don't have to do much. His arm strength is high for a center fielder, but in left field it's going to drop. But outfielder jump and outs above average, you're not concerned much with those numbers, especially playing left field instead of center. Doesn't have to cover much ground. The Yankees have had thrown Stanton out in the outfield. Having Bryan Reynolds is a complete upgrade. He's a guy that's played a lot of games in his 4 seasons at MLB. Don't have that many health concerns, which is something the Yankees should be more concerned with than any other factor. Is availability. They've had plenty issues in the past of guys not being available when they need him to be available. Bryan Reynolds has seemed to be that guy. It makes no sense for them not to make this move, but it doesn't look like they're going to do it, but they really need to do it. They constantly lose to Houston like we see here, especially this game 4 where they had a good lead. They're up 3-0 and found a way to blow it with errors and mistakes. And you put in Bryan Reynolds, another competent player, another really good player, another guy that's been an all-star, and you get him in this lineup, add him in there. I don't know quite where he'd fit, but there's so many question marks with this team. Like, what is Donaldson going to be? Is Hicks going to be any better? Can LeMahieu stay healthy for a season? If LeMahieu's healthy, is going to be as good as he's been. And you got to add in a guy that certainly, we know Bryan Reynolds is going to be really good. We know he's going to play a lot of games, and that's a big issue with the Yankees is guys not playing a lot of games. You have guys like Anthony Rizzo, guys like LeMahieu, guys like Bader that you don't know if they're going to be as good as they were because they're very streaky. Reynolds has been consistent through his career. His numbers don't completely jump out, but he just quietly totals up these numbers, and he's very consistently been above league average hitter, and that's what you want to add if you're a professional baseball team. You always want to add guys that are above league average and better your team, and Bryan Reynolds is one of those guys. You don't need him to hit 30 home runs, although he can. He hit 27 this year. You just need him to be a good player, continue with his career average 361 on base percentage, his career 281 average, continue to have an OPS plus well over 100, and you're good. Get a WRC plus well over 100, and you're good. And the Yankees would love that, and they need to make this move. Bryan Reynolds is the best left fielder available for them. They really don't have to give up much.